live.
Good evening, community. This is General Council, Tuesday, July 14th. We have quorum and we'll get started with attendance. Sherry Lynn is away and I've been nominated as chair for this meeting. We'll start over with Amos.
Scanlon Swogego. This is Amos, present.
Gary Bombury. Dale Bombury, present.
Dean Hill.
Hazel Johnson. Melba Thomas.
And online?
Thomas Bombury, present.
Thank you, Audrey. I'm Elena. We are missing Sherry Lynn, Greg, and Cynthia are away on council business. And we hope to see Helen and Leslie soon. So we'll get started with community acknowledgements. We have a moment of silence on the agenda, and this is for community members recently lost. And me personally, I take this time to send positive thoughts to people in our community that I know need good thoughts and prayers. So we'll have a moment of silence, please. Thank you so much. And number 3 is adoption of the agenda. Does anybody have any additions or changes? Seeing none, a motion to adopt the agenda. Moved by Dale, seconded by Dean. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, thank you. Number 4 is adoption of general council minutes from June 23rd. Dale and I were away this June 23rd evening for grade 8. I was grade 8 graduation. Same with Dale. And I believe you changed that to add Cynthia did the finance committee update on my behalf. A mover for the June 23rd minutes. Moved by Carrie. Seconded by Audrey. Thanks, Audrey. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none. And we'll move on to number 5. That's a presentation from Essex Forestry technician Jeff Sadler, and this is to do with a Hydro One request. Is Jeff available? No? Okay, gotta skip over Jeff. Number 6 is Chief's updates. As we mentioned, she is away on some council business, so we'll leave that for when she returns. Number 7 is update from committee meetings, and the first would be Education, Language, and Culture Committee. The meeting date was Wednesday, June 24th. Audrey?
Thank you, Elena. We have a meeting on June 23rd, and what we are working on is trying to develop a community committee to help work on education. So we discussed a lot of the criteria we're looking for in those positions, and we're also working on an RFP, which is a request for a proposal to hire a company to work with education. As you know, we have no staff. So we're going to be working at that and trying to find the funding for it. We did a lot of discussion on the company and what the deliverables are. And our CEO sent us a template, so we have to respond with any changes to it. Save the date was the First Nations Education, Languages, and Special Education Forum, and it's going to be held in November 3rd to the 5th in the Valhalla Inn Conference Center in Thunder Bay. And the consensus was that C. Leslie Green will be attending on behalf of our ELC, Education, Language, and Committee, and she will be doing a report when she's done. We also discussed our terms of reference and our mandate, and it's being deferred to the next education meeting. We also had a lot of other discussion points which were good about education, and a lot of it had to do with Haudenosaunee values being taught, and also being role modeled. I know it's being done now, but I think we need to take a look at it like as a system. Adult education, high school level, to be advertised so more students know about all the bursaries and the awards. The need for a school like Sylvan, but Six Nations made and operated, and to help students who really need the extra help in education, such as literacy, numeracy, science, etc. We should be starting summer school, and it should be paid for by ISK. Should be free. There should be busing for our kids. Should be breakfast, lunch provided. We talked about skills trade shop to be upgraded. We talked about bringing back the trades back to grade 7 and 8, and also family studies, but updated with the latest best practices. We also talked about nutrition and exercise being taught more for a healthier generation. So those were the discussions from our committee, and we also wrote a letter to Lisa Westaway, who's the regional executive for First Nations Inuit Health, and she also holds the title of the Associate Assistant Deputy Minister for ISK, and we're looking to discuss education with her, and we're just waiting for a return or a response to our letter. And thank you, Elena, for writing that for us. Also had conversation with communication with Travis Anderson, the Director of Federal Schools, and we're going to be setting time aside in the fall to discuss education and work closer together as partners. And he also gave a link that you could look at for if you're interested in seeing all the federal schools. It's www.ontarofederalschools.ca, and they give a list of all their plans. They share their guiding compass with us, the vision for teaching and learning, Haudenosaunee language and culture, special education support for learners, literacy, numeracy, technology integration. So it's a good read, and I think that the more people know what's going on in their schools, the better. That's the only way we know how and what needs to be improved. I also had discussion with Julie White, who is the Superintendent of Education for Grand Erie, and she shared data with us for the ESA for the last couple of years. So we'll be working with our data department to input that so that we are now getting more and more control of our own data for education for Six Nations. And that's pretty well it. Yeah.
Thanks, Audrey. Does anybody have any questions for Audrey? And if not, we can accept as information. Dale will move. Carrie will second. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none. Thank you, Audrey. The next committee update will be well-being, and the meeting date was Friday, June 26th.
This is Amos, and I'm the chair of Wellbeing. Just a quick update. After 36 months, we finally got a letter going to Jane Philpott as the one responsible for primary care in this province. And we've taken our time to create and craft a letter that invites her to come and have some conversation with Six Nations of the Grand River as being the largest community in Ontario, First Nation community in Ontario, and yet she has not approached us. So we're now going to approach her to see how we can get involved with her primary care mandate, in which everyone in Ontario is supposed to have a primary care doctor by 2029. So we're handing out the olive branch by way of a letter, an email that was crafted by the staff of Wellbeing to invite her to come and open up a discussion on our needs here. As my colleagues know, and most of the people that I talk to in the community, Grand River is looking at creating an integrated health system here from prenatal to end of life. And we got parts of it. We got the hospice now going, but we want to look at diagnostics, assessment, all of that, as well as part of that integrated health system with primary care. So I keep saying this over and over because I just want to make sure that everybody understands that for our population at Grand River, we should have 15 primary care doctors and we only have 5. So if the rest of the province is going to enjoy that kind of compensation or support, we should also be entitled to that as well at Grand River here. So in that letter, we're suggesting that to Ms. Jane Philpott that we want to begin these conversations, and we also want to look at a primary health team. There are 300 of those in Ontario, but there's not one of them are First Nation or integrated with First Nations as a part of that team. So we want to, there is one here at Grand River, but it's not very active. So we want to make sure we can resurrect that and discuss that with Jane Philpott as well. And the other thing that I've learned in the last couple of years is that health in Six Nations is primarily funded by the province. So we've got to remember about that. And that's why we need to make sure we can open up those doors and start meeting with the minister and folks like Jane Philpott, who has a mandate for primary care. So that's where our team is at this point. I'm glad we okayed the letter, the team, the committee okayed the letter to be sent out, and it was sent this week. So we're really happy with that, to begin that discussion with Jane Philpott in the province. We have standing items on our in our meetings, and I'll just go over them real quick. Maybe Hazel and Melba can help me with some of this. The hospice has been challenged because now they're adding a little basement in the direction of the building, in the construction of the building, I should say. So it's kind of being held up, and the offer by the construction company or the construction folks are willing to retool the logs that we're going to bring in for the building, and that's been held up as well. Our road into the property too was a challenge. So those are the 3 main items right now that are before us regarding the hospice. Ganeos, we have been having discussion. It wasn't on our agenda this week to just to ratify the fact that we are going to save the property that we have now, the physical plant. We're just going to go ahead and accept the offer by ISK to remedy or restore the building as it was, so that we can get back in there as we are short of space. So we ratified that this week, that we'll go forward with that. The nursing home, our folks in Delhi are close to coming to Brantford to Fox Ridge. It's supposed to be at the end of July, so it keeps like it's moving back every 30 days. But now we're hopeful it's going to be in July that our folks will get over this way to closer to home at Fox Ridge in Brantford. So that was the latest on that. There's still some approvals that have to go forward. Um, even the system or the plan that we have, the strategy to move our folks have to be approved by the province, which is a good thing. It's a safeguard. They just want to make sure that the safety factors with our seniors will be well taken care of, even when we're transporting them to Brantford. So that's been some of the latest things, the last things that have to happen to tie up that move from Delhi. So we're hopeful with that. So those are the main things that we discussed at the meeting, and we want to make sure that we keep updated to the province and to the federal government and to ourselves of the need for an integrated health system. I've been having some sidebar, I call it sidebar meetings with Haudenosaunee Health Incorporated. They're the folks who are looking at trying to get a diagnostic center licensed by the province. As you know, they were turned down, to get a license. And because of the NDAs and we can't find out why we were turned down whenever we think we matched everything with the proper consultants that we had, including medical personnel who reviewed the proposal. They didn't understand how we would have been turned down for a license to have at Grand River. But that's what happened, and now we're trying to investigate that, do some intel, find out why we were turned down. But in the meantime, there's words in the wind that the province may release another set of licenses for diagnostic centers in Ontario. So hopefully we're going to get ready for that. We already have our proposal, so we're just going to tweak it, and that's the work that we've been using with Deloitte. They've been helping us with that, and Airds and Bears as well. Burlist, in Brantford, the legal firm. They've been helping us as well. So we're trying to get this all organized, and now I'm going to lobby our local MPP to keep an eye on our proposal. After all, he does represent us, even though he's not on the territory. He's in Brantford. So we're going to get in touch with him and have a meeting to make sure that he can keep an eye on our proposal and find out and help us find out why we weren't issued a license the first go around. So those are kind of the political things that we have to do in advocacy on behalf of our community. The diagnostic center will have MRI and CT and full assessments, hopefully, with for cancer and all that kind of those kinds of things that happen in a diagnostic center or facility. So we're hoping to bring that to Grand River as part of our integrated health system. So those are our updates, Chair. And if anybody has any questions, you can always get a hold of me by phone or by email. So Melba and Hazel are here, my colleagues. I don't know if you have anything to add from that meeting. Yes, Hazel? I'm not even a chairman.
In regard to the license that Six Nations was not, they didn't get a license. But the bigger question becomes, why did one person get 7? And that's what we're on their heels trying to figure out why that would happen. I can't say one person needing 7 licenses when this community, they had everything would look good, and everyone thought we're going to get it, but it didn't happen. Thanks.
So with that, Chair, I would like to thank my team, and that's our report for the month of June.
Thank you, Amos. Any questions for Wellbeing Committee? Seeing none, a motion to accept his information. Moved by Hazel, second by Dean. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, thank you so much. The next committee update is Community Committee, and that was for the meeting Wednesday, July 8th. Go ahead, Dean.
Thank you, Chair. So within the committee, we discussed a couple of things. One was the opening of the new space on Tuscarora and Fifth Line. Excuse me. The reception's been good, and as we know, that the blue track is resurfaced as well. There are rules that are posted up as well, just for the care of the public facilities within the blue track. You know, let's try not to have any wheels on the blue track. But as for the public space on the Tuscarora area and Fifth Line, that area is, you can use tracks, whether it be for biking or whatever the community would like to do. But the blue track is just for running purposes only. You know, it's been a while, and I think it's the first time it has been resurfaced, so we want to make sure we preserve it as much as we can for everybody's use as well. As for the discussions, we've been having long discussions within our want to say our in-camera portion of the meeting regarding around the CHRT Canadian Human Rights Tribunal rulings. Right now, what we're going to do and what is going to happen is we're going to bring this further to a full council meeting for further discussion, and then more information will come regarding that, regarding the comprehensive community plan and distribution of that money. And that's about everything right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean. Any questions? Seeing none. Oh, Helen, go ahead.
I don't have a question, but I have a comment. I would probably suggest, and this is about the park on Tuscarora and Fifth Line. Is that what it is? I would suggest maybe mentioning to Arliss or whoever, they need to put up a fence, because this park is supposed to be to go there and relax and reflect and think and all that kinds of stuff. It's not like a playground park. It's like a, I don't know what the word is. Yeah, like a meditation or whatever like that, if you want to go do it. But you're sitting there looking at this junkyard across the road. Nothing but junk cars and tires and everything. And I'm sitting there thinking, how are you going to, what kind of a, how can you go there to relax and be calm and think things when you're looking at this junkyard that shouldn't even be there because it's a residential area? So I was going to suggest to Arliss to put up a fence along the roadway there, at least to cover up some of it, so you're not looking at that when you're sitting there trying to reflect and whatnot. It's a disgusting looking sight to even begin with without a park. Because there's so many houses around there, and then you got this junkyard like that, and it's really disgusting looking. And not to mention, there's a lot of issues with those tires. I remember a while back, Dale had mentioned that we needed to talk to them about getting rid of those tires, because if it ever started burning, they got them all around the hydro wires and whatnot. So it's not a really good thing to be looking at. So I would suggest to committee to see if Arliss might consider putting up a fence, one of those wooden fences, to cover, at least cover some of it up and make it look a little bit better.
Of course, we'll bring that to consideration. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions, comments for Dean and Community Committee? Otherwise, a motion to accept his information. Moved by Dale, second by Amos, all in favor. Any opposed? Seeing none. Next on the list would be Built Environment, Climate Adaptation, Lands and Membership Committee. That's Dale. Take it away.
Thanks, Chair. I know, and I know the administration team sat, I know they're working on a report that's gonna be consistent through all the committees, I guess, but I guess we're still waiting on them to finalize it. But I know the SAT team's gonna be having a discussion. I know there were some concerns and issues in regards to trying to complete it, so they're gonna be working those out so that we can have, all have a, I guess, formatted presentation in relation to any of our committee updates. But in regards to Built Environment, Climate Adaptation, Lands and Membership Committee, I know I had gotten a few things here in relation to what's going to be happening and the impact it's going to have with the community. I know this year there was, we're going to be doing repaving again on six sections of roads There's one on Tuscarora, which will be between Sixth and Fifth, Onondaga, between Sixth and Fifth, Fourth and Third and Second. And then one on Cuga Road between Sixth and Seventh, and I'm referring to Sixth Line and Seventh Line when I say the numbers. And then on Chiefs Road between Second and First Line. And they're hoping that it was tendered out, and that they're hoping to start this in August. There's a company that's called GIP, and it's called Green Infrastructure Partners, and I'm assuming it's their paving division and connected in connection with Lafarge that will start the paving. However, before they do the actual paving, there's a number of cross culverts that cross from one side of the road to the next, and they'll be working on those roads too, which usually get done before the paving started. So there may be some interruptions on those roads that I mentioned, where they'll be working on the cross culverts where the road might be closed for the day or whatever. But we'll ask that Public Works have some promotion going to the community to ensure that everybody is well informed when that happens. So I know on Chiefswood there'll be one cross culvert will be changed, and it's just south of house number 583. Then on Onondaga, there's 4 of them that will that will be changed. Just south of blue flag number 963. Actually, there's 2 of them just south of that. Onondaga Road, just south of 2141, and just north of 2349. So that's the different areas where they're going to be changing those cross culverts. There's 2 on Tuscarora Road, which is just north of blue flag number 2108 and 2216. Then there's 2 on the Cuga Road, which is just south of 2495 and 2580. So those cross culverts will usually get changed before they actually start paving. So there may be some interruption, and we'll ensure that the Public Works and our comms committee keeps the community updated and informed. And I know Derek always provides a summary, and Derek Hill, who looks after a lot of the built environment and capital projects. And I know he always gives a list for us right now. He has basically 21 different projects he's looking at that he's working on. And the first one is the new hospice, and I know Councilor Amos did mention a few things on that, on some concerns that they had. So the building itself is where there's some collaboration happening between Tugo Architect and True North, and True North is going to be the supplier of the logs, and then they have another company called Legacy North, I guess in connection to the construction, and they're receiving estimates from them. And the other concern that was raised, Amos raised that, was the infrastructure, which is the entrance and the road going back to where the hospice is going to be located. So they had anticipated by the design to be finished by First Nations Engineering Service Limited, and hopefully once it gets completed and approved, they'll have it tendered out by the end of July. So hopefully by late summer they can anticipate some work to be going on back there. The Iroquois Lodge, which is being proposed for Six Nations here. Again, the schematic design is they had anticipated to be done by the end of June, so we'll be waiting to hear an update from Derek on that. And the infrastructure to feed the system has been submitted to a company called HDR, which is called Henningson, Durham, and Richardson, and they'll be doing the service design on that and submitting a proposal. I know the public library and archival building, which was originally put together way back in 2012, and I know it's 2026 now. So I know were able to retain some funding from the Indigenous Community Capital Grant Program to update the design on that. And it's currently being reviewed now by the project team to, I guess, bring it more up to date in relation to the design that was proposed in 2012. The Gowaneo School, and everyone can see where that's happening on Tuscarora Road, just south of Fourth Line. And right now, the project is, there's no issues with that project. They are on schedule and are on budget. So that's, when you hear words like that, that's a good thing. And then KL Martin and Associates is the one, project managing that. I guess another concern, or not a concern, additional work that was needed in relation to Gowaneo School was the wastewater force main to feed it into the, main distribution system that's here in the village. So that is, First Nations Engineering is working on that, and they're hoping to have it tendered out, to be tendered sometime in August 2026. And I know I guess their completion date for the actual school itself is looking for it to be in May 2027. So I know they got a lot of work to do in relation to that, especially when it comes to the infrastructure and the wastewater force main. I'm just gonna skip over some of these things. Some things haven't changed much on some of the projects. I know with I know maternal child, more or less known as the birthing center. I know they were doing a lot of renovations work there, and hopefully they're going to be. They had substantial completion in May. There was, I guess, a few deficiencies, and they're working on that now. Just jumping over here, and I know the new welcome center. I know Councillor Gregg talks about that, and it's ongoing. They're 85% complete. I don't see a anticipated opening date, so but just that they're 85%. The contractor is working on the interior of the building now. Some repairs that were going on the arena, and that had begun in July, so it'll be ongoing for the next. Actually, they're gonna work to start in October. And I know Dean talked about the blue track. And I know there was an assessment, structural assessment that was done on the log cabins, senior log cabins, and the public library, and those were tendered out, and they're looking to be starting to work soon in relation to that the library can be accessible again. Looks like maybe, what, I thought they had a date here when that would be completed, but it's not. For completion, the social service building, everyone can see that, and they did have substantial completion in May. And right now, the social service department is working on plans to move into that building. And I think Amos as well spoke about the Ganyas building, of the work that's going to be going on there, which was going to be just the existing footprint. And I know Six Nations had a need and a want to expand just because of the increased population here on Six Nations, but the ISK is only willing to replace as is. And as well, Amos did mention about the Fox Ridge, and hopefully people will move, the seniors and elders will be moving to Brantford soon. And the other project, the last project he's working on was the road project that I had previously mentioned. Other than that, Chair, that's the update I have for our committee.
Thanks, Dale. Any questions or comments for the BCom committee? Amos, go ahead.
I'd just like to commend ourselves for the last couple of meetings. I've heard discussions and been a part of the discussion about an emergency plan. And I know when I first got on council, I remember Hazel mentioning that because the weather's changing. That's like 2.5 years ago already, and we're still trying to, I guess, resurrect that organization or that committee. I think it's so important because we're just going through like another 3 days of heat. So I think it's time we do create a strategy to look at emergency care for our community. And I commend all of my colleagues. We had a couple of good, robust conversations the last couple of days about that. And hopefully it's going to land with us soon. Um, I always go back to that June of 2 years ago when I didn't realize that we would be flooded in Oswego and on Fifth Line. I was taken back. I was at the Chiefs of Ontario conference, and people were sending me videos, and I couldn't believe even in Oswego we're getting flooded by rain. So I think it's timely that we look at a plan, and I'd just like to share that with the community that we are going to start looking at a plan for emergency care for our community. That's it, Chair.
With that being said, Amos, just a reminder to committee that the cooling station will be open again tomorrow from 8:30 in the morning until 9 p.m. at night, and that's at Dudgeau for anybody in need. Helen, did you have a comment or question?
I don't have a comment, but I want to continue with Dale's report. Um, regarding housing. I attended a housing meeting. I've been appointed by council to sit on the First Nations. Oh, I have to write it down because it's so long. First Nations Off Reserve Housing Center. Indigenous Affairs is establishing a First Nations Off Reserve Housing Center, and it's going to be looking after a large sum of money. Uh, we're looking at billions of dollars for off reserve housing. They've set up a board, they've done the bylaws, we've done bylaws, we've done mandates, we've done terms of reference, they've established a board from all over Ontario. It's only in Ontario. We've had 3 or 4 meetings. We met on Wednesday in Toronto, and we're just going through all the nuts and bolts of how this is going to work. It's moving along quite quickly. They're going to be taking applications, funding applications, I think, starting in November for shovel-ready projects off reserve. There is conditions like it's there's certain peoples that you can build apartments or whatever for. Like they have to be like vulnerable people. They got to be elderly. They got to be youth. They got to be people with disabilities. Those kind of things that can use the apartments or the houses, apartments, whatever you want to, whatever that anybody wants to build. I have a hard time sitting there simply because I know how much we need housing on reserve, how much people need housing on reserve, but this is all for off reserve. Urban, rural, and remote. It's going to be for those kinds of communities. So I have a concern because I know how much we need housing here, and why they're putting all this money into urban housing. I don't know why they're doing that. Because if we had housing on the reserve, then people wouldn't have to move off the reserve. I know a lot of people do it because they want to, but a lot of people are moving off because they don't have nowhere to live. But when you look at all the stats, most of the reserves, over 3/4, some of the reserves, over 3/4 of their population is moved off reserve. Six Nations alone, we have half of our population is living off reserve. So there is a lot of need for off-reserve housing, but there's also a lot of need for on-reserve housing. So it's kind of conflicting for me to be sitting there because I'm really supporting on-reserve housing. It's all it's kind of tied into the Build Canada Homes. There used to be a program called EARN, it was called EARN, Urban, Rural, and Northern. They had like something like $4.5 billion. So what happened is that money kind of just sat there. So what happened is Build Canada Homes took a large chunk of that money to build Canada Homes. And then 1.4 billion is going to this First Nations Off Reserve Housing Center. So it's kind of sort of connected into Build Canada Homes, but First Nations isn't going to benefit from Build Canada Homes. If you recall, when they came here to give us a brief information session, when I asked the lady if First Nations was going to benefit from the Build Canada Home, she said not directly. So everything's going off reserve. So I'm sitting there trying to keep tabs on everybody, making sure they know what I think and all that kinds of stuff. So let them know what Six Nations is doing. Another thing that we're running into, I am anyway, is, again, I think I mentioned it before, is data. Six Nations does not have any housing data. We have none. We used to have a long list of people waiting to get a house, but over the last probably 5 years or so, they got rid of that list. So we don't even have when people ask me how many people need houses on the reserve, I have no answer because I don't know how many people on the reserve need a house because we don't keep a list no more. Ever since they changed it, it's changed now where you can't just go, you know how you used to be 18 and you'd put your name on the list for a house? You can't do that no more. We don't have that no more. So we don't really know how many people here even need a house or even want a house. And when I'm in these meetings and everybody's talking about money, I can't sit there and say this is how much need Six Nations has because I don't know. So we really need to get on data data for housing. I don't know. I know the data department that we've got. I think they do mostly health right now. They're not really concentrating too much on housing. We also need a lot of data for homelessness because there's money for homelessness, but we have no data for that as well because we don't know how many people are homeless. And that's the same with all the First Nations. Everybody's running into that same thing with First Nations for homelessness because nobody really knows how many people are homeless. I know you go to I know Carla Miller was here the other week. I wasn't here, so I didn't hear what she had to say, but I know she knows some of the people that are homeless, but there's really no data, so it's hard to really, when I'm sitting in meetings talking about Six Nations need, when I don't know really for sure what our need is, other than my own opinion. Like, I know we need housing and stuff like that, so that's another big issue. We really need to start doing data somehow for our community. I also know housing's working on a small apartment building. I think it's going to be, I forget how many units. They're working on that, so hopefully that's going to be coming soon, and it helps a little bit, and every little bit helps. And I just wanted to mention about membership too, because with all of the new members being added to the reserve, membership is being really inundated with phone calls. People coming in, phone calls, all of the new members wanting to they got all these questions and they want to know all of this. Where's your, where are you? Where is Six Nations? Some of them ask. They want to know the education, they want to know the housing, they want to know. They're constantly getting phone calls. So it's really added to their workload. all this extra work that they're having to put in to answer people's questions and whatnot. So that's really a big issue. And I think council really we need to take a stand on this, these new memberships being added. Because we know too that it's really impacting education. It's really impacting post-secondary. And I have been advocating, I don't know how long, for us to go to Ottawa to start demanding that we get more money for education for all these new members. But we're kind of slow at reacting to things. So we really need to get on a ball on this because we still got the second generation coming. We still got the people coming from the second generation. So the first place they all go is education. Um, and so if we're already if post-secondary is already in a deficit from before, it's going to even be worse when they do the second generation because they're not sending money with them. They're putting all the people on the list, but they're not giving us more money to service these people, provide service to them. And they're entitled to service if they're getting put on the list. So we really need to do something about that. And other than that, I'm going to continue going to my housing meetings. I still sit on the Chiefs Committee on Housing. We haven't had any meetings for a bit, but they're all concentrating on this new one. And ISC is still working on transferring housing to First Nations. That's still ongoing. So there's a lot of things going on with housing right now, but it's mainly concentrated off reserve. So being the suspicious person that I am, when it comes to ISC, I just keep asking myself, what are they up to? I even read in the paper not too long ago that they're transferring a whole lot of health dollars to off reserve. So, because they know everybody's moving off reserve, but they don't realize people are moving off reserve because we have no place to live here or any other reserve for that matter. So it's going to be difficult. We really need to be taking some stands, letting our voice be heard and standing up and saying, we need this and we need that. And, I don't know how I can light a fire. I'm going to try. Light a fire and everybody, council, all of you. Alrighty.
As soon as we get you the data, you can light the fire, Helen. So data and analytics, Helen's coming. Hazel had her hand up and then Dale.
How you ended, Helen, with your information. I think we need to have a housing summit on reserve.
Can you mute yourself, please?
I think if we had a housing summit to discuss all that, see the information that you know, that you see, and to me, I agree with you about ISK. It's almost like they got some hidden strategy that's always going to affect us negatively. Um, like here's an example of if young people want to have a home now, and they are looking for a house, can't find one on reserve, so they have to go rent off reserve. Then when they rent off reserve and then they apply for a loan here, they don't qualify because the rent that they pay is well over $3,000 a month, which brings their monthly expenses too high, and then they don't qualify for the loan. So the situation is here that everybody's caught between a rock and a hard place. Even though you got good intentions, you can't do anything with them because you got all these stumbling blocks that you can't make that progress. Um,
I think if we had a summit, Helen, and it seems to me too, when we have one person going to these types of meetings, it's just like you're out there floundering, like with the concerns that you have, and you know the problem, and you can't, I don't know if you can't understand. It's like you don't know what to do because you're only one person amongst how many, and you're really fighting against ISK if you have a different opinion than them. Um, as for that education funding and all of the people they've put back on our ban list, it's really too bad. Um, I know a lot of our native students have had to go to other places to borrow money to go to school and then pay it all back after. I'm thinking that the criteria for anybody to get that post-secondary funding, I think you have to live on a reserve before you qualify. Like you got all these people that they're adding to the ban list. We don't even know the names of the people. You got our students here who have done well and they're off to university, etc. But they can't get enough money to, and therefore it's families that have to help the students. Um, I think we're caught between a rock and a hard place with so many things that are just mind-boggling sometimes. I'll stop there.
I recall asking post-secondary Hazel about their policy on the ranges of where you could live. There's a range, but it's their policy that allows for off reserve members, and like Helen mentioned, there's some people that can't live here for they want to, but they cannot for whatever particular reason. So then those people have to be considered. But I understand where you're coming from. Um, Dale Amos.
Yeah, just to follow up on some comments that Helen made, and Helen, thanks for that update. I know housing is part of our committee, and I know you're our lead on the housing issues. But I know internally for the waiting list that you had mentioned, that yes, when people turn 18, they got on a list. And I know after a number of years, and this was quite a few years ago, that this policy was changed. And the policy that changed, um, I guess, in kind of forced the people seeking for a loan had to have land, the 1 acre in their name. And by doing that, it did eliminate a lot of people who were on that list and didn't have land. So when housing would go through the task of trying to qualify and of who's who and who's ready, when they go through that list, probably over 50, 60% of them, they didn't have no land, so they would just move on. So that's why the policy was changed, so that when the community member is ready, they had to have all the documentation, the land and their all their credit history and everything had to be in place. So yes, that list has changed, and it's pretty. I guess when somebody gets on it and they have all the documentation, they can move rather quickly through that program. I know on the other side of the rentals, and I know there's a huge list. I think it's like almost up to 300 people on a waiting list, and that is like probably close to 5 year wait. And I know a lot of them are 2 and 3 bedrooms, but even now the big push is coming on from community members wanting to have 4 or 5 bedrooms for their families. And I know for Six Nations and the portfolio that they have, I think they might only have 2 or 3 4 bedrooms. So it's rather difficult for that list to move forward because it takes a long time just because of space wise. And I know for the elders, which is I think where Councillor Malva lives right now, and I think that's like a probably 2 to 3 year wait as well to get into a place like that. And I mean, I know when they're in the elders' place, they're there till they're, I guess, done. And very seldom do people move out, so that's a long wait on that list too. So I agree with you in the sense that housing is needed in all areas for the elders, seniors who can have independent living, and even more rental units. And I know the bigger issue that the community is facing right now is the availability to be able to buy land. I know it's few and far between, and when it is available, it's very costly. Far cry from what it used to be years ago, and that's just the way things have changed on Six Nations now. It's quite costly to be able to buy your 1 acre. So that's just some further information in relation to housing. Thank you.
If I can jump ahead of Amos and just suggest maybe that at committee, at BCom committee, maybe we speak with housing about potentially starting a separate list so that that data can be gathered for Helen's purposes. That, I guess that would be a starting point. Amos and then Helen.
Yeah, I just wanted to support some of the information Hazel shared with education and post-secondary. Just to let the community know and all of us know that I sit on post-secondary and we are short of funds this year. We knew that last year as well. We were going to be short of funds. The approximate number is $5 million. And from our last meeting, I was able to secure the amount of rejection letters that went in to students for the fall, and that number is 205. So 205 of our young people will not be able to use funding to go to college or university starting September. So that's an alarm that we need to address, and we need to pull our minds together about how do we strategize to go to ISC or SNGREC or whoever to make sure we get that funding for our students. So anyway, that's not a secret. It's public. It's a fact that we are short funded for post-secondary education at this moment. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Amos. Helen?
Yeah, I just wanted to add too that I just sent out my, I did my emergency management, emergency housing report. I just sent it out today for everybody to read. I was trying to, I was trying to get it on the agenda to do a PowerPoint since April, and we've been keep running into issues. Either I couldn't be here or we couldn't get it on there or whatever. So finally I just said, I'm gonna send it out to everybody. It's done, you can read it. I've got recommendation on there. So now it's gonna be up to council to move on it. I've done my part. It's gonna be up to council to move on it and figure out how are we going to work on emergency housing? What do we have to do? One of the recommendations I made, I think, was to have all of the different departments that deal with emergency housing to come to council and do an information session, because I was having a hard time getting some information about some of the initiatives that are out there. Because it's been so long, I figured we should all be meeting and discussing all the different things that everybody's doing in the community for emergency housing. And then it's something that we really need to work on, but it's going to take a while. It's not something that's going to happen overnight because it's a hard subject, emergency housing. All the different First Nations I've talked to through my housing meetings that I go to are all running into the same thing. So it's not only Six Nations, it's all the different reserves are having issues with emergency housing. So we really need to sit down and come up with some kind of a strategy. But it's going to be up to council if they want to move on that. So I did my part.
Thanks, Helen. And I did see your report in the email. We're at the time where we can move to accept the BCom committee update as information. Carrie will move. Audrey will second. Thank you. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none. Last but certainly not least, the finance committee update. That's me. Our meeting date was Friday, July 10th. We have welcomed the new CFO, and I think she was introduced at the last, maybe general finance. So that's Donna Dodgson. So we were bringing her up to speed, and seeing, I guess, letting her know what path we were on before the last CFO had left, and then asking her kind of what her experience was with all of the stuff that we were working on. And so she's very experienced. She brings a lot of knowledge, so we're excited to have her on board. And just I'll be meeting with her separately tomorrow morning. Her and I will be just kind of getting into finer detail of that. And that's basically all the finance committee has done this last meeting. Aside from taking a look at some of the investments that the community has. So because this is a newly formed committee, we're trying to get a handle on all of these different aspects of the finances. So the previous committee meeting, we looked at accounts receivable for the whole organization. That generated some questions. We'll get some answers to those. Again, this one was investments. That also generated some questions. And then we're hoping that we can have a quarterly report from the investment people so that we can keep an eye on those. And that's basically it from the finance committee. If anybody from the committee, we have Dale and Amos here, if either of you have anything to add.
I just welcome our new CFO too. I think that she brings a lot of great credentials for us to consider. And I mean, we posed some questions to her about even the new funding arrangements, and she's already had some experience with some First Nations, which will really help us in our journey. So I'm really hopeful as well for this committee and for finances at Six Nations.
Dale?
Other than our long list of bedtime reading, has all the policies that related to different aspects and how it affects council. I know we're slowly going through those as well, just to make sure everything is up to date and current on our policies relating to the finances.
Yeah, it's an illusion. It was an optical illusion at the beginning. There was maybe 3 or 4 policies on our list, and now there's many policies that we need to go through. So anything that has to do with finance, they put on our reading list, so we'll be well versed. So if there's no questions or comments about that update, that very brief update, could I have a mover to accept his information? Dale and Amos. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none. Our next general council meeting will be July 28th, and the deadline for agenda items is noon on Tuesday, July 21st. If I could just quickly go back to our delegation that was not present at 6 p.m. That was Jeff Sadler from Essex Forestry Technician, Hydro 1. I got an email from Natasha, and she had let him know that we're taking it off the agenda. However, go ahead, Dale. You have a
No, just a comment. I mean, I know this isn't new. It's always, yeah, it comes every few years. And what they're doing is primarily for the safety of the 115 kVA volts that run through which is essentially the hydro towers that run through Six Nations. And like this request isn't unusual. They've come numerous times, and for the safety reason, they want to look at the vegetation in relation to how it's growing under the towers and under the lines. So it's essentially if it's getting too high, getting too close, and they just clear it out. Anything that's within the underneath the towers. So this isn't unusual. I mean, I can't answer for him, but just in the past, I know this has been here numerous times, and they always come every few years to ensure they do an inspection. And once that's done, then they go through and start cutting down a lot of the underbrush just to keep, so that it doesn't grow too high in relation to, for the hydro. So, I mean, I don't have a concern with it, and I know, like, I don't have an issue approving it for them to do that, just for the safety of the transmission of the hydro lines that pass through Six Nations and for the hydro.
I tend to agree with you. I think it was pretty straightforward, and there in the briefing note or what was provided, there was some questions asked and answered. So if I could, for council and the community, I'll read the recommendation. Whereas Hydro One Forestry has requested permission to Hydro One to enter onto Six Nations of the Grand River territory to patrol and for possible vegetation maintenance of the 115 kilovolt transmission corridor located between Highway 6 and 5th Line to Indian Town Line to inspect for vegetation encroachments that may not be able to wait until the next scheduled vegetation maintenance cycle. And vegetation encroachments consist of vertical growing brush within the wire zones or directly underneath the wires, within the corridor that are within 15 feet distance under the max sag rating for the specific span. Hazard trees, trees that are declining or dead or that are within falling distance of the 115 kilovolt circuits. Whereas the last full cycle vegetation maintenance was completed in 2021, Hydro One last patrolled this section of the corridor in 2024. Whereas the patrol will consist of 2 to 3 Hydro One employees by foot or by using an off-road utility vehicle to inspect the transmission corridor. And whereas access to the transmission corridor will not require entry onto private properties, should access to private lands become necessary, Hydro One Forestry will notify SNGR prior to entering any private property. And whereas, should any urgent vegetation encroachments be identified during the patrol, Hydro One Forestry will perform the necessary vegetation maintenance during this period. And whereas the patrol is expected to take approximately 2 to 4 days and will occur during the period of, I believe that's a Monday, July 27th to Friday, July 31st, 2026. Therefore, be it resolved that Six Nations of the Grand River 59th Elected Council grant permission to Hydro One Forestry to patrol the identified 115 kilovolt transmission corridor running from Highway 6 and 5th Line to Mohawk Road and Indian Line, including the use of an off-road utility vehicle for the purpose of inspecting vegetation encroachments and completing any urgent vegetation maintenance identified during the patrol during the period of July 27th to 31st, 2026. Is there a mover? Moved by Dale, second by Amos. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none. That's carried. Is there a waive second reading on that, Natasha? There's not in the agenda. Would you like one? Okay. Moved by Dale, second by Amos. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none. That leads us to number 9, which is motion to adjourn. Moved by Carrie, second by Amos. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none with my eyes closed. Okay, thank you so much, everybody. Everybody stay cool. Another reminder to community again, there's still just about 2 hours left on today's cooling station at Dojo. Closes at 9 p.m. and again open from 8:30 a.m. to 9 p.m. tomorrow. Please stay hydrated. Please check on your loved ones. And please call the crisis line if you have a crisis or an emergency during this time because of this heat. Thank you all so much.